And good morning, everybody. We are back again. 10 o'clock. Well, it just turned 10 o'clock on my computer. 10 o'clock on Saturday, the 3rd of September. So, welcome to September. And the first Unhindered by Coding live stream of September of 2022. We are going to continue to work on ice-repos. We'll talk a little bit about the state of play there, but today is probably going to be mostly data structures, I think, and maybe a little U, but I think it will be a lot of data structures. As I mentioned last time, I created a Discord. And the QR code that you see both on the sort of title screen and over here on the left should let you join if you wish to. I think that will expire in a couple of days, so I'll have to make a new one for later. If you want to join and the code is expired, hit me up in the comments on YouTube when I post this there, or whisper at me here on Twitch, and I can totally get you an invite link. So, where are we? I'm building, let's actually go here. So we're building an app, web app to batch archive GitHub repositories, and we specify what organization we want to archive things in, and we get list of all the repositories there, pagination, so we can run around and see different pages. This particular organization, I think it had 55, I think it was. Something like that, or repositories. And the idea is that we ought to be able to go through and indicate which ones we want to actually archive. And then there'll need to be some big do the archiving button. Hey, esitsu, welcome to the stream. Good to have you back. And then there'll need to be some big, like, do the thing, archive the repositories button. But that doesn't exist yet. Last week we got all the checkboxes in, and we did the stuff in U necessary to bubble the state of the checkboxes up from the repository card component, which is actually what displays the checkbox and the information about the card, up to the repository paginator component, which has this pagination thing and the list of repositories in it. And now the question is, and this will be the task for today, is managing the memory, the state of all of these checkboxes. So up in repository paginator, we're going to have to keep track of all the all the repositories and their desired state. Do we want them to be archived or not? Okay. And we had just stumbled into that a little bit on Tuesday at the last stream. And today we're going to have to hit that up and address those issues. So I think this is going to be, whereas last time was a lot of U, YEW, I think this time is going to be a lot of data structures and data management in Rust, and some U in the sense of we have to keep that state in a component and make it available in the right places. But I think a lot of it's going to be sort of data structure stuff, but we'll see. So let's hit the code. So we had left off basically here. Excuse me, all froggy in the morning. We had a ArchiveStateMap, which we were adding. So this is the repository paginator component. And its state is a vector of repositories, and that's the current page of repositories that's visible here. It's not all the repositories, because when we first load the organization up, well, that's odd. Yeah, okay, no, I guess because I didn't change anything. We first load the organization up, all we have actually is page 1. So this vector of repositories isn't all the repositories, it's the current page of repositories. And I don't know if that tells us that this is a bad name, because repositories could easily be interpreted as being all of the repositories, and it's really not. Not sure whether I care enough to change the name, but it does make, partly because I'm not sure what a better name would be. I mean, I would just end up defaulting to something boring like current page of repositories, which would be long and kind of tedious. So, not sure. And then state map is what we're working on today. I'll come back to that in a second. Current page is the page number we're on, and last page is the number of the last page. So last page is used to decide how far out this row of buttons goes, and current page here would be 5, here would be 3, here would be 8, but last page would be 8 in all of those settings. So that's currently the state of the paginator. And my idea from Tuesday was that this ArchiveStateMap, which I'm not convinced is a great name, but and I'd be happy to take suggestions for better ones, that this ArchiveStateMap would be where we would keep track of the repositories that we have information on their state. So when we first load up a page, we're by default, I'm setting all of them to be archived, because the way I envision using it personally is that they would be, I'm gonna want to archive most of the repositories, if not all of them. In most cases, actually, I would expect to archive all of them. That when a course ends, unless there's a student or a group of students that really want to work on some repository later, I would probably archive it. And in fact, if there was a group that really wanted to keep working on something, I'd probably encourage them to clone it, fork it, template it, whatever, so they've got their own copy outside of the class repository, class organization, and continue their work there. And I'd still archive the original after they had a chance to make their copy. So by default, I'm assuming everything's archived. And so we want to sort of track the repositories we've seen and their archive state. Now, at the moment, all we're bubbling up from repository card is one of these desired archive states. Actually, let's go find that definition, which is a usize, an ID. So that's the ID of the repository, and that comes to us from GitHub as part of what we get when we get all the stuff from GitHub, and our desired archive state. So instead of bubbling up the whole archive, we just bubbled up the ID. And part of the reason for that was because I'm wondering, we will eventually need to be able to turn those IDs back into full repositories. for display purposes, because my idea is when we hit the big button, we'll get some kind of display that's like, okay, here's all the repositories you said you want to archive. Are you good with all that? Okay. And that's going to require at least having the name. I don't know how much else of this we'll want to display there, but we'll at least have to have the name. And right now, all we've got coming back is the ID. And I thought that was clever at the time. Do we, when we call the car, so yeah, we clone the whole repository. And I have a feeling that if I emit the repository back up, I'm going to have to clone the whole repository again. And that's just cloning all these repositories I find very irksome. And so I don't think I want to do that. So let's stick to just passing the ID back up for now. So the paginator gets the ID. And so when we left off on Tuesday, we had the map was from usize to bool, but I think we actually want it'd be nice to have a reference to the repository here, because we're gonna need to keep all of the repositories, not just the current page of repositories, somewhere, and keeping them in this state map seems like that would be a reasonable thing. And if they're keyed by their ID, then that simplifies things. So my idea actually was to replace bool here with not desired state archive, because that's just I was thinking this had the whole repository in it, but it does not. I mean, we could obviously do this. And then we would be able to map from a repository ID to a combination of the whole repository object and a Boolean indicating whether we want to archive that repository. Map from the repository ID as a key to a pair containing the repository object, actually the repository struct, and a Boolean indicating whether we want to archive that repository or not. Well, let's try that. We'll see if we can make that work. So now, if we do that, then and then I had started some impl stuff. So I had a new that just makes the new hash map, and then add repos, which took a slice of repositories and added each of these repositories into the map with a default archive value of true. And actually, this probably ought to be a reference to a repository. Is that going to work? Or am I going to have a lifetime problem again? Or do I really need RCs on these repositories? I wonder if I do. Do I need RCs on these repositories? And then I could be passing references around and they would get freed at an appropriate moment. Maybe that's actually the thing to do, because I have this problem where I don't have the lifetimes of the components in you are unclear to me, and I don't seem to have any good way to access or manage those lifetimes. And they seem like they could be basically the entire life of the app, static, and I don't really want to declare everything as static. So maybe RC would be the thing to do. I'm going to make a note of that for now. Let's see. Maybe replace repository with RC repository in places like ArchiveStateMap, so don't have to clone them all the time. Because a repository, as it's defined right now, never changes. Nothing in a repository struct ever changes once it has been constructed. And so if we just had so there's no reason we couldn't just have a reference to an immutable repository object once that's a thing, once it's created. So I feel like that's a possibility. Okay. Let's not deal with it right now. And actually, there we go. But that's a thing to maybe think about. So if we do that, now this doesn't work because entry gets us the corresponding entry, and or insert insert something if there was nothing already there. And right now we're just putting true, but we really need to have this pair, so we need to have repo true. Boom. And now repo is going to be a reference, and that's not going to work. So yeah, see, this is where I think I'm going to end up, because I could do this. I wonder if I'm going to end up with an ownership problem, but maybe not. It didn't seem to yell at me. Okay. I kind of thought I'd end up with an ownership issue. Maybe I will later. So that adds all of these. Now, one thing that I realized after we finished yesterday, if this repository is already archived, we don't really need to keep it in the state map. It's never going to come up. So I think I can say if repo.archived, actually I just want if not repo.archived, then so then where else do we have compiling problems? We have compiling problems down on line 190. Yep, there we go. Okay. So so maybe here we're having the issue. So this is grumpy. So we expected an ArchiveStateMap, and we found a mutable reference to an ArchiveStateMap. And says return type inferred to be ArchiveStateMap on line 178. It says return. How is it inferring this is an ArchiveStateMap here? It's returning nothing inside an error clause. Wow, I don't understand that at all. Okay, I want to look at this again. So, and mute ArchiveStateMap. So the it makes sense that I feel like this probably does need to be mutable because we are going to alter its value over time. Can I do that? No, it does not like that. Does the mute go over here? Da, 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 da. No. How do I say that this should be mutable? Rust mutable struct component. I don't think that answered my question. Oh, so we actually just say the point is mutable. So it's not about the fields. It's about the mutability of the actual struct. Okay, well, that's interesting. So, so we just need this. If the state's mutable, then we ought to be able to modify the field inside of it. La 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 la. Yeah. So, but then, okay. If, oh, where am I? I'm scrolling around like mad. My apologies. Here we go. So, okay. So if state, actually, I'm going to do this. I'm going to say, because I do find it useful sometimes to see what the types of everything is. Okay. So this is a state map, but it wants this to be a mutable reference to a state map. And is that because this state isn't mutable? Is that what's getting me in trouble? Can I even do this? No, I don't think so. That would be, what if I did that? Oh, I changed things. Your add repos returns mute self. Ah. Oh, good. Okay. That actually, bingo, bingo, makes sense. Thank you, esitsu, saving my life again. So the, okay, so I think I see the problem. The problem is I returned and mute self here, and your suggestion is that really I want self, not and mute self, because then add repos doesn't get me in trouble down below. So I need this to be this, which is going to require some changes. And I like your idea of with repos, because that I think actually makes more sense as a name. It helps indicate that we get the same thing back after having made some side effecting modification. So I like that. With repos. And now this I need to is it this? Yes. Awesome. So that takes care of that. And now that did make it, that made the other error go away. Good job. Thank you. Ah, learning things is so hard. Yes. And it, I like I only sort of just, I think in the last week or so, figured out that the underlining is telling me that mutation is happening. I think that's very cool. So you think it needs to take mute self, not reference mute self. I assume you mean up here. So you think this needs to be just mute self? And then this would just be that again. So that is in fact working. What would be the, so taking mute self, taking reference mute self means that with repos doesn't take ownership, whereas taking mute self means that with repos takes ownership of the state map and returns that ownership at the end. I'm not sure I understand the advantage. So when you think I'll need to clone the repo and not deref it, so you don't think that this star is going to work here. You think that there's an ownership problem, I presume, that's hiding that. The only other compile error I have right now is down on 219. And that's just because this state doesn't have a map in it yet. And that's just in the initialization. So I think we ought to be able to say, it'll tell me what I called it. State map, archive state map, new. Aha, you were completely correct. Once I fix that, it's grumpy about the repo reference. Well done. So yes, it's not happy about this. So repo is behind a shared reference. And move occurs, you know. So yeah, so if we star this, we're actually pointing into the slice, and we don't own the slice after this is over, so that pointer is really meaningful. So yeah, obviously you're right that like, hey, you don't even have this component error was blocking it from seeing these other issues. So you think we're going to need to clone here because we're going to need to own a copy of the repository in the map. And that makes sense. And that's another place where having an RC might be useful, because then cloning wouldn't clone the entire repository. It would just clone the reference and update the reference counting, which would almost certainly be cheaper. And then the idea is that if we had gone back to this, you think that would have blown up, which it does turn red. Cannot move out of self because that's behind immutable reference. And self has ArchiveStateMap, which does not implement the copy trait. So we do need to do what you said, take ownership, and then return the actual object instead of a reference to the object. Okay, well that makes some sense. Now, we're going to have some more problems. We got 190. I think we're going to have some similar issues. How about movements and ownerships and borrowing and etc. So it doesn't like so again, move occurs because ArchiveStateMap does not implement copy. Yeah. Is this telling us that we have to clone the state map? Because that would be super gross. I mean, like, oh my god, so unattractive. No. Oh, I probably don't have clone. So, interesting. I was thinking there was going to just be some derive that would obviously make it better. So does hashmap not clonable by default? And therefore my ArchiveStateMap is not clonable. That's not probably the right way to find that out. Rust hashmap clone. Oh, it says it would clone. So you think I just need to add clone to this. I was wondering if that, but why did I not need that anywhere else? Well, maybe I did. Oh, I did. I did have to add that. Oh, okay, fine. Wgaffa, thank you. So you think that rather than that would actually make some sense. So you're suggesting that rather than make a new state. But I think actually I have to have, yeah, I think I have to have a whole state thing to call set. I don't think there's any way to say take this state and reach in and update just a piece of it. So I think I still have to make a whole state object here. And adding this clone did solve that problem. And then this is an ownership issue. So we're borrowing a moved result. So we moved it here, and then we're trying to borrow it there. So I could clone it again, but that's a lot of sad. I mean, I could, right? That would, I think, take care of the problem. Oh, so many clones. So many clones. I think I can specify the fields in whatever order I wish. And so I assume your hope is that if we move this down to here... Whoa. Oh, weird. I just scooted way over. That maybe it would do the first thing, and then we would have the access to the oh, that reordering actually worked. And then, but I actually like your idea of calling the with repos first. I think that's better, actually, because depending on the ordering seems just to be like asking for trouble. It's the kind of thing I would totally forget later on. Whereas I think if we say let new state map, actually I could just say let state map, and then I don't have to boom, and scoot all you guys over. So then if we do state map, then I think I can just say state map comma, and then, oh, but I still have the clone in, so we don't really know if that actually worked earlier. We don't know if reordering worked because I never removed the clone. But this does work. So that is compiling, and we can pass, we've used the reference to repos result, and so we can pass ownership of it into the construction of state here, and that's all nifty and swell. So, okay. So that actually does all work. Now we've got a bunch of warnings from Clippy. Somehow I ended up with hash, probably auto-completing somewhere. And oh yeah, so Clippy really prefers that you use self in places like this. And I don't know quite how I feel about that, but I'll play along on the assumption that whoever wrote Clippy knows more than I do. And then 170. Actually, thank you. So I did remove the clone, and it worked. So the ordering does matter. It does them in sequence, top to bottom. So you can choose to construct the elements of the structure in a way that handles your ownership the way you need to. I still prefer, I think, making the state map here and then passing it in. I think it's clearer to me. And then it allows us to have these be in the same order as the declaration, but I don't know. So then Clippy's also grumpy here. What is it grumpy about? It just doesn't like the fact that I'm using unwrap. Yeah, right. I mean, and I get that if I use self in these two places and here, for example, then if I change this name, I don't have to change any of these other things, which is cool. It just can make it a little tricky if you get a long impl, for example, or if there get some distance develops between this name and an occurrence of self, then you got to like sort things out. But maybe that just means you should, not do that, and that would be smart. So, and I as somebody who was, quite new to Rust 2 months ago, less new now, but I remember back in May, June, I would find myself trying to figure out what the hell self was a lot. That doesn't seem to happen as much anymore. And so maybe that's just a sign that, the use of self is something you got to get used to. And there's plenty in Rust you have to get used to. So maybe I don't care. But I do have this memory that having selves everywhere was like, what is this? I don't understand. I think maybe that's why I'm a little shy about it, but I don't know. So on line 170, I have an unwrap. That's because possibly there could be an error from the send, and I'm not dealing with that yet. So we'll leave that alone for now. And then there's an unwrap on 186, and that's we would fail to parse the JSON into a vector of repositories, and we're not dealing with that. And in some ways, both of those are GitHub's problem. Like if they break, it's because GitHub did something. So I'm not going to sweat those right now, and I'll let those warnings sit there. Now, okay. So we think we actually have the archive state being updated when we call pages, because I think we add repositories to it. We're not using the clicking the buttons to update the state yet, but we are getting we are, I think, adding to the map of repositories. As a way of trying to convince ourselves that that's actually true, I'm going to grab a console message here, and up in with repos, I'm going to actually pop one of these in and say the archive map currently has entries, and we'll hand it self.map.size count len. Okay, sure, I'll take that. So hopefully as we paginate, we would see that increase. Oh, I hadn't thought about the git commit, because you know, I have thought that with a reasonable IDE, and especially with all the nice type checking that Rust provides, you know, renaming is trivial because the system can find all the occurrences in a very reliable way. But I hadn't thought about the git commit, that if you have a lot of instances and you change a name, your commit's going to be very busy. Whereas if I guess you've used self everywhere and you do a rename, your git commit's probably one line in a lot of circumstances. Very nice point. Thank you. That's good. I like that. That is nifty. So now hopefully this will tell us that, let's make sure we're compiled, that we are getting more entries, JavaScript console, in the archive. So the archive map currently has 6 entries. And I think that's actually correct. 1, 2, 3. We should have skipped this one because this was already archived. 4, 5, 6. Aha, that looks good. Now if we go move over 1, now the archive map still has 6 entries. Oh no, wrong answer. Wrong answer. Because we should have added. And I'm guessing it's 6 because one of these was already archived. We go over 1. Were any of these archived already? 2 of them were. So we're going to say 5 here. Yeah. So we're not adding. We are overwriting. Poop. Poop, poop, poop. So let's go down to where we get the page. Scrolling. Sorry. Okay. So we get the page. We have the current state. And we get the state map out of the current state. We clone that. Then we do the with repos, which should add things. Are we overriding somewhere? Over the rainbow. So this just sets up the initial state. That's all good. See, that looks, we're taking the old state, we're calling with repos. Does with repos not somehow do the right thing? So, thanks for following. So I think it should persist the state object. This should persist across calls Um, but yeah, I'm pretty sure it does. Why do I think that? Because why do I think that was true? So where's our actual, okay, here's our function component. So we have use effect with depths. So I think it persists this, updating, calling this when either the organization or the current page changes. Is that true? Do we start over again? I didn't think we did. Well, we have this. So we ought to be able to look for this repository paginator called with organization, because that's right before we initialize the state. If this is being called over and over again, that would suggest that we have a problem. And look at that. It is. It's called every time. And so it's resetting the state every time. Oh. So I wonder if the problem is that this state should live outside of paginator and up in main. Yeah. So main calls the paginator, the homepage component calls the paginator. And maybe that state needs to be all the way up at homepage because paginator's getting reconstructed every time, which, yeah, it sort of has to, because it's got to generate new HTML whenever I go to a different page. It's got to rebuild the page HTML, which means this has to be called again. But I would have thought state would have persisted. Right, you'd think that the point of use state is that it would keep the state across calls. Otherwise, why not just have local variables? Manage state and a function component. Yeah, so here we've got a counter that survives being sort of this being redrawn. So it does seem to persist. So why is this not persisting here? Is it Yeah, I could, actually. Because there's no reason I can't just stick, this is just a closure. So there's no reason I can't stick a log right here. So initializing state in repository paginator. Boom, boom. Now why are you grumpy? Hello? What have I done? Oh, I need curly braces because I have two statements now. Da 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 da. Boom, boom. Okay. So we're compiling. Here we go. Let's have a look. Okay. And what did I say? So we're looking for initializing state in repository paginator. Okay. So that seems to be called repository initializing state. Now if I go over one, so it's not calling initializing state over again. Well, that's just weird. So initializing state was right after the repository paginator called. Paginator called, don't initialize state, repository paginator, don't initialize state. So that does suggest that it's persisting the state, which then means that somehow, let me undo all that craziness, get back to here. So it does persist the state, so somehow I'm not, yeah. So let's go up to with repos and let's do a little logging there. So we've said that what we have coming out the other end, what if we say start of with repos map has blah entries self map len end of with repos map has da 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 Come on, you can do it. There we go. And Seaside 361S20. Boom. Okay. So start head 0, end head 6. Boom. Start head 0, end head 5. Start head 0, end head 3. So how it's getting called, we are somehow passing this self has an empty map in it. Blah, blah, blah with repos. So right here, let's add, oh, actually, let's grab this. Pew, pew. Pew. So before with repos call, and then this is gonna be state map state dot state map dot len. Why is that not? So this set isn't doing the persist the changes? Yeah. I mean that's the whole point of oh, actually, and we have this the new repo state. We could be looking at that. Let me go ahead and finish this. Because I'm curious to know if undo back out here. After so why is that len not there? Oh, because that's an archive state map, and so I need to get the component out of it, which is a map. And now map ought to do len? Yeah, okay, fine. Map.len. So you're concerned about the cloning. So you're suggesting I need to go back to add repos where the oh, okay. Okay. I'm actually like, but I do wonder if the cloning and the fact that this returns the no, because this returns the in this case this will return the clone, and that's okay. I would have thought. So actually I really want, this needs to be just state map. Yeah, because I want to print how many are there before we do anything, and then how many are there after we've done this step. Programming is hard. Okay. Boom. Okay. So before with repos had 0, started with repos had 0, end of with repos had 6, after with repos had 6. That is what we expected. Now, if I move forward 1, let's find out what happened. Before we called it, it had 0. So the state before we call with repos does not have those 6 entries in it. And that's why we don't get, So right here, this state.statemap.map has 0 entries at this point. Why would that be the case? That is a fascinating question. So update state for organization is being passed in a use state handle. An update state for organization is being called here. And it's getting a clone of the state handle. Oh. Is the problem and I don't know, I thought I had it, now I'm not so sure, but is the problem that this line happens once and that clone is passed in to this callback, and I mean, I guess I don't know. I guess I thought use state handle was going to be some kind of pointery thing, and that if I cloned the pointer, they would all be still pointing at the same state object, but maybe not. Because maybe the way this capture happens with the move Actually, let's go look at use state handle. Rust use state handle. The fact that it has handle in the name makes me think here. Use state handle. State handle for use state hook. Returns the setter of the current state. I don't know that I understand what that does. What if we back up? Clone. Oh, that's, yeah, not helpful. Yeah, that's what I was thinking, and is that if there's a underlying reference counting type then you would think it would just clone that RC and we'd be okay. So this I would have thought was safe. We could pass that in. It's a state handle. And I didn't do something dumb like, no, it's a state handle, so it should be okay. But I get 0 here. Yeah, good question. Are you setting the state more than once and it is being overridden? I don't think I'm calling .set. Or am I calling it right there? Is that the problem? Make button callback sets the repo state. Oh, is that actually the issue? It probably is. Oh, look at that. I bet that's true. So the buttons, when the buttons get pressed, we set the repository list to be empty, but we keep the last page, but I wipe the old archive. Well, that was not helpful. So this really needs to be the old archive, repository paginator state.statemap. Bet that's the problem. Yeah. Oops. Do I have to clone? Move occurs because value has ArchiveStateMap, which does not include copy. So I probably have to clone this because I'm only cloning everything everywhere. I've got to do some RC stuff, I think. Or context, one of the two. But this cloning is just killing me. So now this is magically going to fix it all. So while it's kind of true that Rust stops you from making a lot of mistakes, it certainly isn't true that it stops you from making every mistake. Okay, so let's see. Yep, 0066. That's what we would expect. And now, hey, we have 12. This adds 5, hopefully. And it added 5. Yay! And so as we go through, up to 20 and 23. Really? Oh, because a lot of these are already archived, so it only added 3. Interesting. And 30 and 37 and 43. Okay. Whew. Oh gosh. That was a lot of fuffle. Okay, so that actually works. Now this smells like I've dug a hole for myself that I will trip on again. Why? make a new state here. And so we click a button, we make a whole new state, which changes the dependencies, which will cause another HTTP request to be made, which will then change the state again. So we have two state changes, and that seems a little awkward, and makes me wonder if the state map is again just in the wrong place, that the state map really should have been up a level. Somewhere else. Yeah. Feels like that's... And actually we had web things. If we had checked the new state here that was printed here, we would have seen that the state map was empty. But I didn't sort of actually make good use of my previous web consoles. So let's clean up some of the web console stuff that we added, because I think that is not going to be helpful to have lying around. And let's see, down here we had the before and after. Okay. Make sure that all still works. I didn't break anything. I don't think I did, but anxious. And then we'll actually compile, commit this. We still haven't actually gotten to what was sort of the point. So now we should have increasingly long sets of yeah. Okay, I think we're good. So I'm going to commit this. So we cleaned that up. We made some changes. Made that clonable. Change this to be a map to repositories and booleans. Remove the names. Change the reference. Had to clone a bunch of stuff. Okay. So, extend ArchiveStateMap to hold repositories in the values. So I think that was the main thing we did here is, so we extended the ArchiveStateMap hash map so that the values are now pairs, repository bool, instead of just bool. This had to fix a host of ownership issues, mostly by adding even more annoying clone calls. At some point, we'll really need to either use context hook or create or use RCs to hold shared content. Anything else that I need to say here? I don't think so. Boom. Okay. Okay, so now, after all of that, at this point, the archived state map never changes except for getting a new page of repositories added to it. In particular, when we bubble up the desired archive states, desired archive states. So that's got to be in here somewhere. Desired, yeah, right here. So on checkbox change, at the moment, we get the desired archive state, we console it, we do nothing else. So that's got to be updated in the map state. So I don't know why I have that. Oh, I think that's left over from done some copy paste, and so here we need access to the state, which, do we have that? Can we say things like repository paginator state? Okay. No, we do not. Are we going to have that? Yeah. So that would cause us to take ownership of that. Oh, jeez. Oh. That hurts so much. You're so right. Man, we have got to do better. These clones. There's some meme about some old movie about clones here, I'm sure, but you're right. Okay, so we're going to have to actually have the state available in here, and that's going to require cloning. Is this going to be lat repository paginator state equals repository paginator? Oops, nope, come on. Clone. Now that's just a handle, so that's not painful. And now okay, that compiles fine. Nope. It doesn't like that. Is this because is this because I'm just not doing something sensible here? Is that the problem? Okay, what if I did that and we change this to state map has entries dot state map dot len Okay, so maybe my problem, maybe my problem was just like trying to return it or something was messing with the ownership. So that does seem to work. Did we need this? That's an interesting question. Yes, because otherwise it had been given away here. Okay, that's fine, because it's the state's just a handle, so that clone is not too painful. So we want to we need to look up the entry. So we are saying so let's actually get the map. We actually, maybe what we really want to do is in our impl. What if we say set repo state mute self ID usize archive state bool, and then we would say self.map.set. No. How do we change something? That's a good question. Clone, drain, extend, get, insert. Insert. If the map did not have this key present, none is returned. If it did have values updated, the old values returned. We don't really care about the old value. Okay, so we want to insert ID, and we're going to need a pair, which is the repository and the new state. So we actually do need to get the old state to know the repository. So you're suggesting put an RW lock in your state for interior mutability so you don't have to call set. So the idea is then you could just reach into the state and change individual fields without having to rebuild a whole state and then call set with the whole new state. I don't Rust RW lock. Number of readers are at most one writer at any point in time. So we would lock. Okay, so this is kind of like a mutex. So we would say we're going to write to it. So people could say they want to read from it, but we would say we want to write to it, and that'll prevent anybody else from getting in there until we're done writing. And then we can modify the internal contents. And when we're done, we'll unlock it, and then everybody else can go about their business. Actually, that's a nice idea. And then we don't have to do all the cloning because we know only one thread will ever be writing at a time. And so the ownership situation becomes simpler. Yeah, I was wondering, do we want this versus mutex? But maybe we do. I mean, because as I say here, mutex doesn't distinguish between readers and writers. I mean, I'm not expecting a ton of threading here, and we're in U, so I don't even know how that's going to get handled. But we don't have any true parallelism, so maybe it doesn't matter, and just a simple mutex would do. And your idea of having an API on the state makes a lot of sense. Okay, I'm gonna actually make a note of that. Let's do that. Let's do that here. Idea to do. Idea from esitsu at Twitch is to wrap the state in the component. Actually, to wrap the state with either a mutex or a RW lock, so that we can directly modify the elements of the state this means we don't. I guess one thing I don't know is whether calling .set in U has some additional behaviors that we want to have happen, and that call it by like moving around .set, whether that will cause something to not happen that should. And I did think about multiple states. I feel like I even tried that and didn't do it for some reason. Because I do, like, multiple states would have avoided that problem where we had reset the ArchiveStateMap to empty, actually. And I feel like I convinced myself multiple states weren't going to work. But maybe we should try that, because actually that actually would have simplified that. Set to update the component state, and we might avoid some cloning as a result. Okay, so that's that. Now I actually want to, what have we changed? Because I do want to think about what happened up there. Weird. Not sure why response got tossed in. I bet that was a autocomplete. Let's actually explore this multiple state idea quick, because I do feel like that would have simplified and it would have made that one problem less likely. Let me just see if this even compiles. let ArchiveStateMap equals use state ArchiveStateMap. Oh, I wanted new on that. I didn't want a thing. Oh, let's see, up at 58, we've got an error that's just because I had an incomplete thing here. Let's comment you out for a hot sec. Okay, so this compiles at least. Where are we? Here. So this compiles, which suggests that there is no inherent reason that we can't have multiple states here. And that way we could have kept this separate from this. Which would have been helpful, perhaps. Let's see if we can make that work. What time is it? 11:37. That might be the last thing we do today. So if I say we're just going to get rid of that, now that'll blow things up because state is going to have, yeah, state still has this. Let's say no, state doesn't have that. And now that's going to blow up all kinds of things. 147. So this is the make button callback. This actually just shouldn't have had this line at all. And 196. So this is where we were. So we were updating this here. And this really would have been a separate update. So actually we could have just said archive, no, what did I call it? Oh, we were, it wasn't passed here. So we actually need to pass the ArchiveStateMap here. ArchiveStateMap, I think it's D, right? Oh, yeah, okay. ArchiveStateMap. Use state handle ArchiveStateMap. Boom, bop, biddly, baddly, boo. So then this is just going to be ArchiveStateMap dot am I going to need to clone that? Or can I just call with repos and repos result and then ArchiveStateMap.set that? Boom, 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 boom. Hey, that part compiles. That's kind of cool. Now, line 241, we need to call this with our archive state map, and that's going to have to be cloned, I bet. Or not. I bet we'll have to come back to this. It's unhappy right here. Oh, that's because that isn't a thing anymore. So this is going to be archive state map dot map dot len, and this is grumpy because, come on, use of mood value archive state map. Yeah, so it's gonna have to be some kind of clone right here. Didn't like that. Oh, and actually, we wouldn't need the repository paginator state won't actually happen anymore, so that's not going to matter. Oh, thank you. Sigh, but I've got so much cloning. Does ArchiveStateMap not clone? I thought it did. Yeah, right there. Clone. So what are you grumping about down here? Value moved into closure here. It's a use state handle. We are cloning it. Oh, no. Well, and there are other issues. Oh, yeah, there are definitely issues up here. Let's. So this is an ownership problem that presumably is because I didn't clone right here. No, not because of that. Let's undo that. What's the issue? Cannot move out of dereference. Move because value has type RF7 does not implement copy trait. Oh, yeah. Because this is a state handle, I need to deref that and then clone. Can I? Is this like deref? Clone? Nope, not deref. Is this? Do I just need to star it? Oh, yes. This might be this problem. Yeah, because we'd had to do this in a certain order. So maybe this has to come before we do the repos business. Because we'll pass the reference in and then we get it back and we can use it. Okay. So that actually does seem to work. And now we've got the problem down here. Oh, okay. So I guess, do we think calling .dref would be clearer than the star? I kind of feel like it would be. Dref dot and standard ops dref, just like you said. Haha, well done. Okay, great. Now we're back down to here. And the problem, no. So the problem is we're using this here, but we have, it's gone in here because we didn't clone it. Oh. ArchiveStateMap.clone. Now that clone will get passed in and we're good here. Hey. So I think we did simplify things in a useful way by having the two states. Well, and I found, I don't know, the syntax of putting parens around it and a star, you end up reading, so where'd that line go? Dref. Here we go. Here. If we put the star first, you've got this name, and then you read left to the star, and then you kind of parse out the parens, and then which surround it. Then you move right, and then you read left to right from there. Whereas if we do this, we just read left to right all the way across. There's no unusual syntax, and there's no grouping that we have to think about. It's just, we're going to take this, we're going to deref it, we're going to clone it, we're going to call with repos on it. So we get a nice straight left to right, or top down if we sort of dot each thing on a line of its own. And so I think I find that that's a cleaner read to me. So I think I like that better. Okay, so then does this work? Compiles. And we probably never actually print the size of the ArchiveStateMap anywhere. So we could add that here. There are entries in ArchiveStateMap. ArchiveStateMap.map And now, la 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 la. We will. Oh, good. I've got a warning I need to deal with. There are 6 entries in the ArchiveStateMap. There are 12. There are 17. Yeah, good. 23, 30, 37, 43. Awesome. I think that looks good. So let's say I'm going to commit. Oh, I want to get rid of that unnecessary response. I keep somehow pulling that. Oh, come on. Let me have it. There we go. I don't know why that keeps popping up, but we're not going to worry about it. Okay. Oh, I should get rid of that commented out line on 64. That shouldn't be there. And that will just come back in a second. That got removed. That added that argument. This is probably not a great name. Whoa, go away, go away, go away. It's probably not a great name anymore because there's 2 states here. I'm going to let that go for now, but it's probably not brilliant. And this, yeah, okay. I think that all looks good. So split the state into 2 structs. Having all the state info in one struct was potentially confusing and helped lead to at least one error in the button callback, or the page button callback. This splits state into 2 parts, one being the state for a page of repositories in the paginator, and the other being the state holding the map that records the desired archive status for repositories. Okay. Boom. Okay. Well, that's exciting. And I think we got some good stuff going there. It's 11:54. And I'm going to have to, oh, hey, there is a warning here that from Clippy about a redundant clone. That's an awesome thought. Is that really possible that there's a redundant clone? I could get rid of a clone? Please tell me it's true. So it claims I don't need the clone here. Really? But I could have sworn we had a problem if we didn't have that. Oh. Actually, it compiles. Oh, but we haven't done anything in here, and I think once we do something, we may need to actually clone it, because we're going to have to modify the state here. So I think I'm going to leave that alone. Okay, I need to scoot. So I think we're going to call this done for the day. I'll be back this afternoon in 2 hours to work on system stuff, more client-server architecture things, I think is the plan. And it'd be wonderful to see some people there. Feel free to join the Discord if you are so inclined, and I'll be posting notes there. And otherwise, thank you so much for the help and the feedback. Esitsu and Wgaffa, super helpful as always. And I look forward to seeing everybody later. Ciao!